Hi there, welcome in my Corona office, which you see in the back here. I guess you will see a lot of this, and I will see a lot of you on Zoom this semester. So, welcome to this class, and thank you for registering for it. I thought I would introduce myself to you a little bit so that you know who you're dealing with, and you get a little bit of an idea of my values, my upbringing, and so forth. So let's get going. If I can advance this. Yes. You may detect an accent because I am from, let me see if I can move this. Yes. Where am I from? Because I'm from East Germany. This is an old map where East and West Germany are still divided, and I was born in Halle, a small town, and then I moved to Dresden, a bigger and much more wonderful town. And you may see on this map Berlin here. So that right away sets me up for a whole set of ideas. Right, I lived in a country that was pretty much a totalitarian country, and I was part of a family that was on the outs. Over here, you see my father, my mother, and my wonderful three brothers. I'm the oldest of four, and don't you just love those lederhosen? Look at those, right? The pants that my brothers are wearing are super cool because they're made out of leather and you never have to wash them, and your mother will never scold you if you're rolling around in the mud all day long. So they're my parents, and my father was a church music director, and that made him very vulnerable because in East Germany, anybody affiliated with the church was not exactly appreciated. So that, of course, shaped our upbringing. It resulted in the fact that none of us could go to university. We were pretty much, yeah, on the outs, as I said, and the government would have liked for us to just disappear. But my parents were steadfast, they stayed, and they tried a lot to make a difference in the political landscape in East Germany. So that shaped me too, being politically active and caring about what's going on in the country and in the world. Just to give you a visual here, since I'm an art historian by training, so we will deal in any of my classes with a lot of visuals, not just in the art appreciation class. This is the wall, as we called it, the wall, which came down in 1989. It was also known as the Iron Curtain, but you see here very clearly it's not just a wall. It's two walls and a lot of no man's land and tank traps and soldiers patrolling with machine guns and dogs and so forth, and of course mines. This was pretty awful, and so we were locked up. It's interesting that this is one of the few walls that was ever built not to keep people out, but to keep people in. So the people on the outside of the wall were actually the free people, whereas we who lived behind the Iron Curtain were the ones who were locked up. In 1989, the unthinkable happened on November 9th, pretty much by a political error, by an announcement on TV that should have never happened. The wall came down. Now, that fall of the wall followed years and years of political activism, which came out of the Protestant church in East Germany and united many, many people behind ideas like caring for the environment, women's rights, freedom of speech, and all of that. And freedom of speech, I have to say, is one of the most dear things to me. And I hope that in this class, in any class I teach, we will have a place where we can agree to disagree. That means we can have a place where we can voice our ideas, and we will take any and all ideas seriously, and we will discuss them. So, how did I get here? My husband is from Plymouth, Michigan, and I met him in 1979, way back when we were young and beautiful. So he was an American, I was an East German. All of this seemed totally ridiculous. And so it took us 6 years until we finally decided to get married. That is a whole big long story, which I will not bother you with. But as you can see, we were a somber wedding group here. We actually didn't have any professional photographers. This is just as good a snapshot as any. And I have to say, we all looked, my father, my mother, we looked happy, but actually also not. because this wedding was also the ticket for me to leave East Germany, and I never knew if I would ever be allowed back to see my family, or if we would all have to go to a third country to see each other again. So that is bittersweet. Um, my life in the US started in 1985. Here I am with my beautiful 3-year-old little son. And what is remarkable to me is that I eventually got a degree in 1994, because when I arrived in this country, I had about 200-300 words of English in my pocket, absolutely no money. And my husband and I, for 10 years, we lived below the poverty line, which means I have seen a lot. I know what it means to not have enough money for your car, and not to make a phone call to Germany, and not to have a beer on the weekend, because all of those are luxuries that just have to go. But we were determined, we were interested in culture and education. So I started working in this country at a frame shop, which meant I was sent in the back because they couldn't send me in the front because I couldn't speak English. So I cut glass and cardboard for a couple years, and I earned exactly $2.50 per hour. That was even less than the minimum wage because I sort of worked under the table. I do have a work permit, but nobody would hire me because I couldn't speak English. So from there, I guess my in-laws took pity on me, and they sent me to the first year to the University of Michigan. They paid my first semester, and then they said, after that, you're on your own. And you can just imagine, with this little English, even after a year in this country, I probably had a few thousand words of English. It is not enough to survive at the University of Michigan. If I had known about Washtenaw Community College, this would have been the place for me to be. Caring teachers, small classrooms, and all of that. Instead, I found myself in huge lecture halls filled with 100 or 200 people, all of whom seemed rich or educated or certainly spoke better English than I did. So I worked during the day in my frame shop. I had a little son who grew up slowly. At night, I would do extra hours, and I couldn't even get to the U of M. I forgot to mention that, because I would have had to pass the entrance exam. I couldn't. So I had to take non-credit classes, which after a couple semesters, I transferred into credit, and that got me into the U of M in the back door. With all of that, it was a steep learning curve, but I was determined. In East Germany, the government had prevented me from education. In this country, nothing and nobody was going to hold me back. So after my first B- on an essay, which at the U of M was a huge accomplishment for somebody with not much English, I realized I had to work harder. So I worked as hard as I ever have worked in my life. And after about, 8 years, I graduated from the University of Michigan with a double master's degree in art history. So I have a background in the art history of the Western world and the art history of the Eastern world. And at some point I decided that wasn't enough, and so I just took classes on my own, which I didn't have to pay for anymore. I just audited, but I learned everything I could about the Middle East and the arts in between the East and the West. So when I graduated in 1994, I got a call from Washtenaw Community College. A teacher had dropped out about 3 days before the semester started, and somebody at the University of Michigan had given the teacher here at WCC my name. So I had never had my own class. I had never taught before, but I said, yes, of course, I'm going to teach. So 3 nights I worked, 3 days I worked, and I was probably about 1 week ahead of my students when I started in 1994. I was a part-time instructor for several semesters, and then they really liked what they saw. So I applied for a full-time position and got it. After 5 years, I became chair of the department, and then I went back to teaching. And for the last 15 years, I was able to devote all of my time just to teaching. But as it so happened, this July, I started being co-chair again. And so now I'm dividing my time between administrative work and school work. And believe me, administrative work right now, no fun. this is chaos. Corona, lockdown, people who have to teach virtually who never have. So I have my hands full. But believe me, you are my priority. I am a teacher with a great passion for my job. And even though I cannot see you and talk to you other than on Zoom meetings, I will do anything and everything to help you to succeed. But you have to put in your part as well, and you will see that. My classes are fun, they are rewarding, you will come out rich and full of new stuff. But they are not free, they are earned by work and by dedication on your part. I wanted to point out that, oh yeah, here I'm holding a beautiful piece of art, which I brought back from Mali where I traveled. And here I'm now with my two grandsons. They have, of course, grown again. Here they are 4 and 6, now they're 5 and 7. And look at this, isn't it fun how my little 3-year-old son and my oldest grandchild almost look like the spitting image of one another? In any case, I'm super proud of my grandkids, and yeah, I'm just very, very blessed that I have a wonderful son and 2 beautiful grandsons. So what do I have to offer? I offer more than book learning, and I hope you appreciate that. I've always been a hands-on learner. I have been somebody who needed somebody to talk to, so a pure online class would have been the kiss of death for me. But the minute I came to this country, and I told you for 10 years we lived below the poverty line, but I started putting every penny aside that I could, that I didn't have to spend. I drove old clunky cars until just recently for my 60th birthday. I got myself a new car, first time in my life. And now well, not now, but for the last 10, 15, even 20 years, I have been traveling every summer. Now, my travel history started way back in East Germany, and there I am hitchhiking. It's the only picture I have of me as a teenager. I think I'm about 16 years old. And because I didn't have any money, I would hitchhike because that was free. And I would hitchhike through the entire Eastern Bloc. I would hitchhike to Poland, Czechoslovakia, Romania, Hungary, and all the way down to Romania and back all in one summer, just to be on the road, just to be moving and seeing new and interesting things. And that is a passion that I have kept. So in 1985, that was shortly after I came, at the University of Michigan, there was a scholarship to go to India, and I worked for that professor all year long for free so that I had some money to travel. And for the first time, I was traveling to India outside the Eastern Bloc. And that just got me going. And from then on, as I said, some years I could make short trips, some years I could make longer trips. And now that my son has grown and out of the university and he has his own income, I just travel as far and long as I can. So between 1985 and 2019, I've been to Europe, Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. And here are just a couple images from left to right, where I am in Syria, in Japan, about to climb Mount Fuji, in Afghanistan. Yes, I made it to Afghanistan, and to Mali, where for years there had been no tourists because Mali is very much plagued right now by some extreme Islamists, and the country is pretty much, there's absolutely no tourism anymore. So I traveled anyhow, and I have to say that this is really what keeps me going all year long. Now, as I started to travel just to spite a system, I now travel, of course, with a much larger purpose, and that is to bring things back to you so that I can share things with you, like, for example, things from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Mali, or whatever, or Japan, whatever is pertinent to our class. I have been to European countries and museums and to the Middle East and all around. The world is huge, so don't think that I've seen everything. There is a big, long list. That is my bucket list. And someday I'm gonna, check off things again when this coronavirus goes away. So here just, a word about teaching. I started, of course, face-to-face, and I loved it. Every year I took pictures of my classes. I traveled with them. I did field trips with them. We had parties. We formed an arts club, which went to museums and to performances and to historical architectural tours and all. I miss it. I miss it. I can't even tell you how much. But despite all of this, we are not giving up. We are staying focused. We're staying positive. We're staying strong because there is just simply no other way, right? Giving up is easy. We can always blame somebody or something on giving up. We can blame the coronavirus. We can blame that we don't have enough time. We can blame things on not having enough money. But I have learned that all of those are excuses. If you have a will, if you want something, you can do it. And so there, of course, will be obstacles and mistakes and so forth. But if you put in your work, there is no limit. And keep that in mind. Nobody out there can hold you back from what you want to achieve. And that is the motto in this classroom. And that is how I will be behind you. If you do your work, I will do mine. One very important thing in these hard and difficult times is that you don't just take care of others and don't just do schoolwork, but take care of yourself. Shelter yourself from some of these really difficult things that are going on all around us. Do one nice thing for yourself every day. I do. In the morning, I sit for 2 hours and those 2 hours are mine. And either I do garden work or I read a beautiful book or I just sit and drink my tea. And I want you to try to really look at yourself too and see what you need. If there's anything that I can help you with, of course, I hope you will email me. So we can do this, right? We can do it. And I'm super excited to work with you this semester in these difficult times because we won't let this stop us. So, but I have to stop the recording now. Let's see if I can do this. I think like